Welcome to episode number 7 of the Benchwarmers Perspective. Today I'm here with Matt Koziak, head football coach of the Sailors, the Mona Shores Sailors, and long time there at Mona Shores. How long ago did you start with Shores?
Shores, I started in 2011, so this was my 15th year.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the successes that you've seen over the last, you said 15 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the successes, some of the experiences and things like that.
Sure. I'm a Mona Shores alum. I played football here under Coach Jewett back in the early 90s, and Mona Shores had that stigma of not being a playoff team all the way up to 2013. So, one of the only OK schools to not do it. And I was able to cut my teeth as an assistant under Tony Anise at Muskegon High School for 10 years. And then, so this job opened up, and I thought, what an opportunity to kind of go back to the alma mater and see if we can give it a shot at turning this thing around. And fortunately, we had some really good players that bought in. The community bought in. The parents, more importantly, bought in and understood. Football takes up a lot of time, and since then, in the 15 years I've been here, we've made the playoffs, 12 of them.
Yep.
We missed year 1 and year 2, got in year 3, and then in 2016 we weren't able to get in. And we're fortunate enough to win a couple state championships and a couple more trips to Ford Field. So it's just been an incredible run. And got to work with some tremendous coaches and work with some fabulous students who just football it takes up a lot of time, and to be good at it, you gotta put the time in. So very fortunate to be able to work with kids that want to put the time in.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned wanting to, the couple trips to Ford Field, and a lot of success, and some of that coming from people who bought in, guys who bought in. How do you contribute, or how do you build that buy-in in a program that has struggled to find buy-in prior to you being there?
That's a great question. Because it's very easy for players to be, we've kind of heard this before. And, when I first took the job at Mona Shores in 2011, I set up an individual meeting with each parent on our roster, 9 through varsity, and just, it took a couple weeks. I think it took about 4 weeks to get them all done, but came in and sat down and just talked about this. I think a lot of it had to do with where I was coming from. Under Coach Anise, we were able to win. Coach Anise was able to win 3 state championships there, and I was an assistant on staff then when we did it. So I kind of had that background, I guess. Coming from a winner, I guess, and just kind of explain, like, that doesn't happen by accident. It happens with what these kids do outside of Friday nights, in January and February. And so just kind of laid out, I guess you could call it a blueprint of what we saw. And, we had to play a lot of young kids that first year. I think on varsity, we started a 13-year-old quarterback who is in the NFL right now, which who would have known that? But we had to start him by default because we didn't have upperclassmen to, he was the hardest worker that we had there. And we knew, if we're going to be bad, and we weren't very good year when we went 1-8, had 1 win. And I think we had 6 running clocks put on us. But we did that with the kids that were bought in. And then so, year 2, we go 4-5. Started off 4-1 and just kind of got the injury bug hit us. And then year 3, we got in the playoffs. And then that's kind of where it kind of took off from then. The following year, year 4, we ended up making a trip to Ford Field. And then a couple trips after that. But, I think a lot of it had to do with where I came from, and then meeting with each parent and just saying, hey, we can't expect different changes if we've got the same result work ethic. So we just talked about our expectations and how hard we were going to work, and I just had great buy-in from the parents and players.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna get to the 13-year-old quarterback here in a second, but because I think that that was a point that that just kind of took me by surprise. But um, I think it's something that you said mentioned, or that kind of I think what you're saying is, you had, you know, 15 guys who were super bought in that first year, or 16 guys, and then that slowly compounded on it over year after year after year, and you saw more and more success. And I go back to, you could have 30, 40 guys in a program, but only have 10 of them bought in, or 15 of them bought in, and that's not always enough to make a successful team. But if you have 15 and all 15 are bought in and that's all you have, that's almost better than having the 40 and only 10 or 15 of them are bought in. Because even though you don't have the numbers, if per se you get an injury bug or something like that, um, you have 15 guys who are always bought in, always there, always putting in the work and doing what needs to be done. Now, I want to kind of wrap around. You had a 13-year-old quarterback starting, and he's in the NFL now. I got to hear this. I haven't
Yeah,
heard.
so one thing, you talked about how to turn it around to, or get it going or get buy-in, is we really kind of sunk our hooks into the middle school program as well. We knew though we wanted those kids to have like our coaching DNA, and we only wanted them to kind of know our routine, our blueprint. The upper level guys kind of had the mix from other coaches, and so that was one thing. And um, the quarterback, Tyree Jackson, he was eighth grader at the time. And he was showing up to all of our off-season stuff more consistently than any other quarterback that we had in our program. And it got to a point where we're just like, listen, he's going to be the guy. And I met with mom and dad, and they were 100% supportive. And Tyree messes with me now. He's with the Washington Commanders, and he's playing tight end now. But he's like 6'7", 265 right now, right? Well, in 2011, he was 5'9", 138 pounds. Who knew he was going to be 6'7"? And he took his lumps, and he took his, it was kind of baptism by fire with him. And he took more of his share of the blame and less share of the credit. And he got better every year. And that wasn't by accident. He put the time in the weight room, and, in our off-season workouts. And as he got better, our record got better, and then his senior year, we end up at Ford Field.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's impressive. So he's playing for the Commanders now as their tight end. Then that's huge. I mean, that's rare to see. So I kind of want to reflect on the last two seasons ish. You guys had some success, a lot of success last year. Pretty successful this year. Gave Muskegon a heck of a battle there in the district. And tell me a little bit about the last two seasons. Some of the ups, some of the downs, and kind of this following season, this next fall, what you're looking forward to.
Yeah, we'll start, I guess, with last season. We had a great season. We went 8-0. We started the season 8-0, sorry. And I think it was the only like third time in school history that we started, that Mona Shore's team started 8-0. Really senior heavy. We had a 3-year starting quarterback with Jonathan Pittman. And he had some great tools around him. Also some underclassmen. Tamarion was a junior on that team, our running back, and just had crazy road games. Game 1 was at Grand Blanc. Game 2 was at Flint Hamady, and game 2 was at River Rouge. Game 3 was at Flint Hamady. And so we had 3 long bus rides, and they handled it so great, to go through that, end up beating Muskegon at Hackley Stadium that year. And, won the conference outright, beat Byron Center, who ended up beating us in the playoffs and making a trip to Ford Field with a tremendous team. Lost game 9 by 1 point to Toledo Central Catholic, which is a perennial power in Ohio. Lost 14-13, went for 2 at the end, and we didn't get it. And Yeah, and we lost, like I said, we lost to a team that we had beat earlier. It was another great game. The first time
Yeah.
we beat them by one, and then the second time we were down big and fought back, tied it up at 23. Then they punch us back and score, and we take it all the way down to I think the seven,
Yeah, it
and the
was I was there. It was I think it was like between the 3 and the 7 yard
yeah,
line.
yeah, yeah. So, just a great battle. And then end up losing to them in the district championship. Who they had a fantastic season, and went on to Ford Field and lost to Orchard Lake St. Mary. Then this year was kind of a up and down. Grand Blanc, we opened up with them again, and they had a tremendous season. I think they ended up going 10-0 before losing in the districts. Won three in a row, beat River Rouge, Flint. Reese Puffer was at our Sailor Salute game. And then we kind of ran into, a Byron Center team that we went, another great game. I mean, our three games that we've played so far with Byron Center, this goes into overtime and we lose 42-35 in a shootout. Have to play Muskegon the next game, and it was we lost two games in a row, and that was the first time we lost two games in a row since 2016. So it's been a while since we lost two games in a row, and I'm just proud of our kids. At that point, we're 3-3, and we're like with our senior class, and we were pretty young this year. Didn't have a whole lot of seniors, and just kind of said, hey, what do you want our legacy to be? We all this was Team 63, the 63rd team in Mona Shore's history, and
Yep.
so we won the next two games. Had to travel down to Toledo, and then lost a tough one to them down there, and ended up 5-4. And now we're kind of praying to the playoff gods that we get a chance to get in. And then we get a chance and go to Hackley. And if you were there, it was a fantastic game, probably top 5 game I've ever coached in, as far as the lead changes and the back and forth and teams making plays. And it literally came down to the last possession, and Muskegon made a great play where they knocked the ball down, and we fumbled and they recover it. But game could have went either way. And so we ended up 5-5, but that game kind of defined, I think, who this group was, just the way, they're 5-4. And we said, all you need is a ticket to the dance, right? All you need is a
Yeah.
ticket to the playoffs, and anything can happen. I mean, you look at De La Salle right now playing the semifinals. They went 3-6 this year. And they're in the
Yeah.
semifinals. So lost a tough one to Muskegon. But like I said, proud of our boys. It was a top 5 game I've ever got to coach in, as far as the way that game played out.
Yeah, I mean, and then the next one after that, Muskegon and a burner with Traverse City Central, right? Traverse City
Yeah,
Central.
losing a
Yeah, I mean,
heartbreaker. Yeah,
yeah, and you just mentioned De La Salle. A lot of controversy around them heading into the postseason. They were 3-6. Some argue that they kind of dropped kids or something like that to get into the play, or to drop into a smaller division to get into the playoffs, or something happened that was apparently sketchy. I didn't look too much into it, but I know there was a little bit of controversy around that. Overall, I've asked a lot of coaches this: how do you feel about private schools playing in public divisions?
yeah, that's a great question. I do want to touch on the De La Salle thing. They play a tough schedule. They play in that Catholic League, DCC. I mean, the three divisions, they're all in the semifinals. You got Detroit Catholic Central in 1, Orchard Lake in 2, and De La Salle in 3. So, they're there because they've got great teams. So I don't want to discredit De La Salle at all. They went 3-6, but they had a grind of a schedule,
Yeah,
one of the toughest in the state. As far as the public and private, you can go both ways on it. I do think there needs to be something. You just look at the percentages, right? Like the percentages of private schools in the state compared to the percentages of state championships in the state. And it's just, I really do think it's kind of apples and oranges, not apples and apples. But, I'm sure you can have pros for the other. But I do think something needs to be done, where we do have two separate. This is just a point in case. We've been to Ford Field since I've been at Mona Shores 4 times. 3 of those times we played De La Salle. All 3 of those times, De La Salle had a different head coach. So I'm not saying those coaches weren't great, but I'm just saying that, we're playing the same team with different head coaches. There's got to be something to that, right? Um,
And I know
so
Muskegon a couple times they have played
yes,
De La Salle.
or Brother Rice or De La
Yeah.
Salle or Orchard Lake St. Mary's. You know what I mean? And so for what it's worth, I do think there should be something done. But I mean, I'm just one coach saying that. It would take something from the coaches, organization, the coaches association to get that changed. And I don't know if it ever will be. I don't mind playing them in the regular season. Next year we play
Yeah.
Orchard Lake St. Mary game 1 and we play De La Salle game 9. So,
Yeah.
but I do think maybe when we get to a playoff scenario, we do a separate. But
Yeah,
and
and something you mentioned that I think is kind of key before making a decision like that is the number you said number of state percentage of private schools in the state versus the number of state championships in the state, right? And where do
mhm,
those state championships fall? And you for basketball, football, um, and like baseball, probably not going to see as many fall private schools way. But you start looking down the list and you look at girls golf, boys golf, tennis, those sports, they're dominating cross country. They're absolutely dominating across the board in those in kind of what some people would call like the country club sports,
sure,
which is where it's real hard. I know when um, I was doing stuff for the golf state finals. I mean, you see like 60% of the schools in the state finals for golf, both girls and boys, are private schools. And so it's a question that I like to ask just because um, it can go both ways. I mean, are you going to on one hand are you going to why can't you if they're why how are they what is the problem there that you're trying to solve? And then on the other hand is well they have more recruiting power because theoretically they can give scholarships that aren't as easy to track, right? Um, and stuff like that. So much different scenario, but curious on that question. So talking a little bit about next year, what's next year look like for the Sailors?
yeah. So I know it's kind of early to think about, but as a coach, you obviously do that. You break down your roster and say, well, how many you got coming back, and what holes are we going to have to fill. But I'm super excited. We had to play a lot of young guys, especially on defense. We really I would say 10 of our 11 starters on defense were underclassmen. We did have some seniors start here, but with injury, we've had, a lot of underclassmen start on defense. So I'm super excited about us defensively next year. And offensively, I think we miss about, I don't know, half, 5 and 5, which is how you kind of should be, where you got 5 kids back or 4 kids back and you're replacing them. But I'm excited. We played a tough schedule with who we play, and we had a lot of young guys play in that tough schedule that will be back. And so, iron sharpens iron. So we'll see. We got a lot of off-season stuff to do with lifting weights and academics and all that stuff. But I'm always optimistic about the following year for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, you know, I know one guy you're losing that's pretty big is Stewart. He's going to University of Miami, Ohio,
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
How big of a role has he played over the last, couple of years?
Yeah. So he's a 3-year starter for us. He actually ended up being the all-time leading rusher here at Mona Shores. Just broke it the last game in the Muskegon game. And huge shoes to fill, right? With a guy like that who's your all-time leading rusher. And I think the big thing that we'll really miss too is he was also probably our best defensive end
Yeah.
this year. And so he had to play both ways this year. And um, it's you got to replace 2 kids. They just happen to both be him. And but I think mostly what we're going to miss from him is, yes, he was a tremendous player. Yes, he was obviously a big physical running back, but he was a great leader. He was as humble as you can get. He loved having teammates. When people ask me about him, he loved having teammates. And what I mean by that is he got much joy out of his watching his teammates be successful as him scoring touchdowns and all that stuff. And I think that says a lot about a kid with all those accolades and as talented as he was or is, to just be thankful to be on a team with teammates he loves. So it's going to be huge, huge shoes to fill for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Kind of transitioning a little bit. I want to talk about the rivalry with Muskegon, how impactful that's been through your kind of tenure at Shores, and what that means every year to you guys. I know you guys got it twice this year. Um, gotta go to war twice this year with them. Had an epic battle last year, early in the season. Um, I jokingly called it Light Gate for a little bit there
Oh yeah,
because
yeah,
the
little
lights went
light.
out with about 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and um, could have odd situation there where it could have gone both ways, and at the same time, um, had it gone another way, there could have been some controversy with the fact that the lights went out and stopped the game with 2 minutes left, and there's a kind of gets momentum shifting. But tell me a little bit about that, and over the years, kind of your memories about that.
Yeah. So, I talked earlier about coming from Muskegon. So I understand, I was born and raised in Muskegon. My dad took me to Big Red games going up. And I always say there's no place better to play than Hackley Stadium on Friday night. Until you do it, you don't really comprehend what that means. It's the oldest playing field in the state of Michigan. It's older than the Silver Dome. It's older than the University of Michigan football field. It has been they've been playing football there for a long, long, long time. And um so being able to be on that staff for 10 years and be in that uh that mystique about Muskegon, when and obviously under Coach Anise, who's won at every level. So when I came to Mona Shores, we saw the blueprint. We saw, or I saw, well, that's what you have to do to win. That's what you have to do to be successful. And obviously, we can't create, 100-year tradition. That's something that
Yeah,
that we can't do. But what we can do is find ways to expect a win. And they were, especially in the early years, and they still are, the team we're chasing, right? The conference usually comes down to us or them. The OK, since we've been in, whether it was the OK Black or the OK Green, the OK Conference Championship went through us or Muskegon. So, and to have them 3 miles away, and most of our kids know each other. Some of our kids are related as far as cousins and or their neighbors, or they go to the same church or whatever it is. I just think it adds to it, and it's great for the city of Muskegon, to have. I just think it's so cool that I really thought it's neat when we're in different divisions, right? And so we have a slugfest and we bat, like 2018, 2019. We play once in a regular season, and then we're both at Ford Field in different divisions trying to win a state championship. And how cool that is for the city. We're both in Division Two now, so we usually end up playing twice, either once in the regular season and once in the playoffs. But yeah, so Muskegon was the group. They had won state championships, not obviously back in the 20s and the 50s, but in 04, 06, 08, and where I took the job in 11. So that was the team to have your measuring stick up
yeah,
against. So and then that was great because we got to play them every year, and our kids knew what it took to go into that game and try to beat them. So I just think it's been great. I've always said too, like, if we found ourselves in different conferences, I don't know why that would happen. I would schedule them, every year, because I just think it's great. It's what high school football is all about. I think
oh yeah,
every kid should be able to play in a rivalry like this,
yeah.
in crosstown rivalry. And so, I just been fortunate that we've been able to come out on top in a couple of those, because it's not much of a rivalry if you're losing it every year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I'm so thankful of what it's turned into, and it's a game that people look forward to coming and watching.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's funny how many of those rivalries we have in, from Manistee down to Muskegon. You
Absolutely.
got Shores, Muskegon. A little bit north of that, you got Montague, Whitehall. A little
Mhm.
bit north of that, you got Shelby Hart.
Sure.
And then you got North Muskegon and Oak Ridge, or OV and Oak Ridge, right? You got a lot in this little tiny area. Well, little tiny respectively
Yeah.
area. And it's just there are lots of fun football games to watch. I think this year the both Muskegon and Shores and Whitehall and Montague all played on the same day. Both those rivalry games were the same day this year, if I'm not mistaken. But just a lot of fun football. Something you mentioned is measuring stick for Muskegon. When you're looking at a program, what do you think has made them so successful over the last 15, 20 years?
Well, yeah, I think there's a lot to it. People talk about their tradition, and rightfully so. And I think that has a lot to do with because you can lean on tradition, right? When maybe things aren't going your way, you can kind of lean on that. But there's a lot of those players on those Big Red teams that are second, third generation players. Whether their dad or their uncle or their grandfather played there, and so there's a lot of pride when they put that helmet on and they walk down that tunnel. And then also coaching. They've had unbelievable coaches in the past, 2 decades. They've had Dave Taylor, the late great Dave Taylor, who's won 2 state championships, in the playoff era. They're the only, they have some mythical ones, but he won one in '86 and '89. And then, then they have a drought for a decade, right? And then Coach Anise comes in and wins 3, and then Coach Fairfield comes in and he, it feels like he's there every year, whether they win or lose, but he won 2 of them and he's been there numerous times. And so I think success breeds success. And the expectations there are every year is to win the whole thing. And I just think with the history, with the success, with the coaching, with those players that buy in, there's a lot of pride that goes into that program and what that means to step onto Wilson Field, their practice field, or to step out on Hackley Stadium.
What do you think goes into building pride like that?
I think the history, that was the oldest high school in Muskegon, you know what I mean? And so you get, Benny Osterbahn and all these names, Earl Morrell and all these names that go into it. And the fact that's the same field they've always played on, and how it's kind of right in the middle of that community, and there's houses around it. And I just think it's they don't have to get on the highway or anything to go to their field. It's just they come out of their locker room and it's right there, and they come out of their school to go to the practice field and it's right there. And I just think everybody they're nationally ranked with wins, and I just think that there's a lot of pride to that in that community. Like I said, aunts and uncles and other Big Reds that have been before them. I think they feel that weight to do well for obviously them and their young people, but they want to do well and they want to make their community proud. And I was there for 10 years and I got to live it and feel it, and people would come watch practice, and it's a neat. It's a very neat and unique thing that only Muskegon has in the whole city of Muskegon.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great answer right there. Is it all goes back to history and pride and tradition. They've been in that same spot for years and years and years and years, and it helps them significantly. I think playing at Hackley Field is one of the toughest places to play, as well. If you're an opposing team, I don't know about for you guys, but there was a statistic I heard that they have like a 60 to 70% win rate when they're playing at home versus away, which is higher than the mean, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how in tune you are with area football, but what teams are you kind of watching next year as we transition into 2020? It'll be 2026, the 2026 football season. Any division, any school, kind of area wide.
Yeah, so outside of obviously us, I got deep connections with Aaron James at Orchard View, and he's a longtime assistant of mine, and so I actually have I've got their bracelet on. I've worn that all year, so
Yeah.
That's number one. I always want to see how
they're
going.
ironically, I've been talking about them for a couple of years now. They went 0-9 two or 3 years ago. Last year, the year before last year, this last season, they were 2-7,
Yeah.
and then this year they were 5-4, and arguably could have made the playoffs if they get that win over Shelby in that last game, or no, sorry, if they get one more win throughout the season, and if Babbitt doesn't go down in the second or third game. It they are a team that next year I think that the WMC Lakes will need to really, really watch out for overall. So I would definitely agree with you. They're one of the teams on the watch list, I would say.
Yeah, so love what Aaron James and what he's doing over there, and Whitehall, they're a fellow veer camp. We do a big veer camp at the end of the year, and at the end of the summer, right before two-a-days start, over in Montrose, that Coach Anise holds, and there's 20 schools there. Whitehall's one of them, Muskegon's one of them, we're one of them, OV's one of them. So Ravenna's one of them. Justin Ego is a great friend of mine, and I'm always curious to see how these veer teams do. So, but I would say number one is Orchard View. I want to see how they're doing, and that's the main one where I'm, after our game on Friday night, I'm always asking our coaches, hey, how did OV do? How did they do? And that would be number one on my list for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Whitehall, they had Cam for a while, and this year they did much better than I thought they would, adjusting without him. Especially with kind of a young team, from what I'm hearing this year, they're not nearly as old as they've been in the past. Another team on my watch list, Shelby went deep this year. Got to play up in Menominee, which Menominee is such a long way. It's a trip. It's a hike up there, and we've had two teams in our coverage area go the last 2 years, with North Muskegon last year and then Shelby this year. Unfortunately, they ended up falling into a really good Menominee squad, which it's hard to tell with Menominee at the beginning of the year because you just don't know any of the teams that they're playing. They're all those UP teams. They're not teams that you've heard of, so there's not a lot of common opponents there. And then outside of that, you got a couple other. I know Oak Ridge is on the up and up this next couple of years or year or so, and Montague did much better than I think a lot of people, my alma mater, much better than a lot of people thought they were going to do, with a new coach.
They were a veer team. They came to veer camp this year. The new coach came, and so they're a triple option team. So I'll keep an eye on them for sure.
Yeah, and another team that they made the playoffs, which is kind of, and it was close, but they had a lot of close games where that making that playoffs run wasn't going to be as had they won two. I mean, they could have beat Whitehall in that rivalry game, and they could have beat Oak Ridge early on in that second game of the season. Both games that they were close in, and ended up just falling just a little bit short. So yeah, but definitely a bunch of teams next year that are on the up and up and are to watch out for. One question I had for you was, I know Byron's. I know you guys have played him quite a bit, held him close in the regular season last year, fell to him in the district final. Another close game this year. You guys didn't end up seeing him in the district again this year. Is there a little bit of a rivalry button right there, or
yeah?
Yeah.
Great question. I think it's in its pre-stages, right? But they've been some really good games. They've all been single score games. The funny part too is the games have ended in like interceptions or takeaways or something where no, they've ended in interceptions. So we beat them the first time we played 14-13. We picked them off at the end as they're driving. Playoff game, we're driving, they pick us off, and then this year in the regular season, we're in overtime. They ended up on the fourth down play picking us off. So I think we're in the pre-stages of what could be turning out to be a great rivalry. But Coach Cisco has done a great job. He's been there a long time, and his kids play hard, and they're super well coached. So it's definitely tough to beat them for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll go ahead and get wrapped up here. I really appreciate you coming on. This was an awesome episode, diving into some of the Muskegon football history, not just the Big Reds, but just the area football history, and excited to see what you guys do next year. It was an awesome season this year, and I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, you bet.